going to be installing an ATS High Capacity Transmission pan for on the Allison Transmission. Just going off the instructions, but you should have a filter, all the hardware, drain plug, and the pan. And one thing they don't show in the picture is the gasket. They want you to have some gasket maker. They said the right stuff. First thing they want you to do is park it on level ground. Lock the wheels. So make sure you have your e-brake on. Put it in neutral. And now you're ready to work. Another thing you might want is some rubber gloves, because you're gonna get some oil on your hands, and you don't want oil on your hands when you're putting on the new gasket with the gasket maker. Get a transmission or engine oil drain pan. Stick it underneath, right underneath the drain plug. I already got my drain plug finger tight, so I can show you. Make sure it's perfectly underneath, because it might splash a little bit. That's good. And then let all your transmission fluid drain. While you're waiting for your transmission to drain, you can get all your other stuff ready. Your new spin-on filter and all your other oil. I'm putting in Redline D6 transmission fluid. It's synthetic. I got quite a few jugs here. I got 10. I guess I had one more jug than I thought I did, but I have around 11.5 quarts. So should be more than enough to help finish this off. I'm using a Napa spin-on filter. You could probably just go to Allison or Cummins or somewhere, and they'll be able to have them in stock as well. You're going to want to drain your transmission until it's just going drip, 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 drip. Because right now it's still a steady stream, and there's quite a bit left in the pan still. While you're waiting for it to drain, right now would be a good time to grease all your ball joints, tie rods, pitman arm, idler arm, U-joints. I let mine drain out, greased all my fittings, checked everything over. There's dripping like this now. What I like to do is just put the drain plug back in, just so it won't make a mess and drip over everything. It only has to be finger tight, because it won't be going back on the truck. And there's the spin-on filter. I already loosened it with the filter wrench, just hand tight. All you have to do is spin it counterclockwise. Some oil will come out. That's why your drain pan is underneath. Now there is a magnet. You can see it right there. There's a magnet on the filter you must take off and put it on your new filter. You probably just put it up on the filter head, but just make sure you take it off. Once you get the magnet off, clean it up as best as you can. When installing your filter, make sure to put a little dab of fresh oil around the O-ring when you try to seat it on. And then make sure you put the magnet around the filter head, seat it all the way up. The bolts on your transmission pan are 1/2 inch. They should be fairly loose, they shouldn't be too tight. I just use a 1/2 inch ratchet, and then just use my fingers to loosen them all the way. When you got all your bolts out, the pan should basically just stay up there, just because the mating surfaces of your seals are pretty sticky. So you don't want to pry with a screwdriver between the mating surfaces, because you might scratch it up and put some marks in it, and then it might not seal right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dead blow, just a plastic mallet, and just start tapping it around the outer edges on an angle, see if you can get it to break loose. Well, hit it twice with the plastic mallet, and it dropped. Make sure you got a good hand on it, or else it will end up in your oil pan, your drain pan. And there's quite a bit of fluid left in it, so don't make a mess like me. Put something underneath it, jack, block of wood, something, because this sucks. So while you're waiting for it to drip off, you can take the old filter off. It's not held on with anything, it's just a rubber seal that basically snug fit, so you can just wiggle it off and make sure that the rubber seal that goes around the neck is taken out from the basically where it goes in, because if it's left in there you won't get a good seal when you put your new filter on. There's the new filter and the rubber O-ring seal. That's the one that you have to make sure that's off the old filter and not still in the transmission, because on my filter, when I took it off, it's not on there. So I gotta go for a fishing inside the filter, where the filter gets seated, with my finger or something else, a screwdriver. Just try not to nick it up and get the old seal out. And now you gotta put a bead of silicone around the pan, and then put the gasket on and back up to the transmission. So the right stuff. There's my bead of silicone. Goes around in between the pan and the bolts. Now you can take a gasket and put it on, align the bolt holes, and the gasket will stay there when you tighten it up. Well, got the pan up on the truck. Just gotta tighten up the bolts. The Allen head bolts are 6mm Allen key, and they go to 20 foot-pounds. Had to get some help to put it on, lift it up and get the bolts lined up, but all you need to do is get a couple lined up and then you're set. You can go around with your torque wrench. Tighten them all to 20 foot-pounds. Crisscross pattern, just like your lug nuts on your wheels. You don't want to tighten it too much on one side and have it warp. I've already went through and done all mine, but I'll just show you. Make sure you do it till it clicks. But once it's all snugged up, make sure your drain plug is snugged up. Then you can go up top, start adding fluid, and check for any leaks on your pan. The drain plug is a 3/8 Allen key. I didn't have an Allen key big enough, so I had to go to my brake tool set and take the 3/8 on my torque wrench, torque it up. Here's a little tip when you're using your torque wrench. When you want to set it, make sure you unset it when you're done with it, or else the spring loosens and it won't be the right torque. Once you've double checked everything, made sure that your drain plug is in, all your bolts are tight, everything's good to go, you can start adding your transmission fluid. And this is a transmission fluid fill funnel. Got it at Princess Auto. When you do your first start, you're going to want to let it idle for a bit. Check for no new leaks other than my puddle I made before. And then when you check your fluid, you're going to want to be in park. So initially you just want to check it, make sure it's even on the dipstick. Then you're going to want to get in, put it in drive with your foot on the brake, first gear, it should be while it's idling when you check it. It should be in the crosshatch where it says cold, and if it's not, then you gotta add a little more fluid. And I have to add a little more fluid. So I just added a little more fluid. The instructions say to add fluid in quart intervals. So after each quarter of a quart you add, you want to check your fluid level again. Be very sure not to overfill your transmission, or else it'll cause foaming of your fluid, possibly burn it out. So I just added some more fluid in, and I'll check the level again. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but I'm just below the crosshatch, so I gotta add some more fluid in. So I've been adding fluid in. Temperature's just showing on the gauge. Took it for a little rip around my yard. Getting a little frustrated though. I've added every single jug that I have. 2 3.8 liter jugs and 5.94 liter. So I've added 2 gallons and then 5 quarts. So I'm assuming that's 2.5 gallons. I don't know how to put quarts into gallons, and I'm barely showing just above the cold level. But I'll check it again. There's my fluid level right now. It stops right at the crosshatch. So hopefully when the temperature gets up, it'll move up a little more, but we'll see. I'm gonna drive it to work tomorrow like this, and if I have to, I'll get more fluid.